Hey, what's up guys? So Thinkware has released the U1000 Plus, which is the successor to the original U1000. Now, I've been running this new Plus since October, and at first glance, they actually look pretty similar. I mean, they've got the same case design and whatnot. Maybe the Plus has black trim instead of silver, which makes it a little bit more stealthy. And they're both 4K dash cams with your energy-saving long-term parking recording capabilities with the optional radar module, which is a really nice accessory. But a lot of the big improvements are actually under the hood. With the new U1000 Plus, there's actually a lot of new features here, including HDR, which is particularly helpful at night. And I'll go ahead and list out all the new features here with the updated model compared to the original, which we'll be diving into here in this video. On top of that, the newer model is also going to be less expensive. It's $30 less than the original one. And this applies both to the single-channel front-only version of the dashcam, as well as the dual-channel front and rear version. Now, I have noticed that the price has gone up since launch, presumably due to tariffs, but either way, it's still going to be cheaper than the original. Now, that said, you got to be asking, what's the catch? You know, with the new dashcams, how did they add more features and lower the price point? Well, it turns out they've actually made a pretty big compromise here, particularly with the image sensors. The new one actually has worse image sensors for both the front and the rear dash cam compared to the original. And so taking a look at the two dash cams, my three main questions are, number one, well, what are all the new features here with the new model? And how helpful are they? Number two, given that they've added HDR, how helpful is that, particularly when it comes to capturing details at night, such as license plates? And number three, given that the image sensors are now worse here, well, how much of a detriment is that to video quality? And so with that said, let's go ahead and take a closer look now here at this new updated U1000 Plus. Now to start things off, let's begin here first with video quality, which to me is always one of the most important aspects of any dashcam. With the original U1000, it recorded in 4K up front and 2K in the rear. With this new U1000 Plus, it still records in 4K up front, but now drops to just 1080p in the rear. And then diving in a little deeper here with the front camera, again, the newer model still has a 4K Sony Starvis sensor, but it's not as good of a sensor. The original dashcam used the Sony IMX334, which is a 1/1.8-inch sensor, while the newer one uses the smaller Sony Starvis IMX515, which is a 1/2.8-inch sensor. And even though both dashcams use a 4K Sony Starvis sensor, because the newer model has a smaller sensor with smaller pixels, it's not going to be doing as good of a job of collecting light at night. And so for that reason, all other things being equal, I do find that the newer model actually struggles a little bit more with nighttime video. Now that said, because they've added HDR, this is going to help to offset this somewhat. I find that HDR is going to be most helpful with things like when you pull up behind a car at a red light, for example, and your headlights are shining directly onto a reflective license plate. If you're running a camera without HDR, it's really easy for the license plates to get overexposed and completely blown out and illegible. And I find that with the newer model, with HDR, it does help to make it easier to capture license plates at night. Furthermore, in some instances, it can also help to improve the ability for the dashcam to capture license plates of moving vehicles as well. And so for that reason, HDR can be very helpful here on the newer U1000 Plus. However, I find that Thinkware's implementation of HDR is not going to be as good as the competition's. Like if you look at the VFO 8229 Pro, for example, the HDR actually does an even better job of capturing license plates at night than even the U1000 Plus, which also has HDR. Additionally, if you take a look at the license plate over on the right, because the image sensor itself is worse, in those times when HDR is not a factor, the new camera can actually look worse than the original one. And so while HDR can certainly be helpful, HDR itself can't fully offset the issues and limitations we see due to the image sensor selection. Now with the U1000 Plus, they've also added Auto HDR. It's a feature that I really like. It gives the dashcam the ability to do HDR just at night, but turn it off in the daytime where it can actually cause more issues than it would help with. Now that said, it doesn't give you the ability to adjust the times of when HDR would automatically kick on and off. It just kind of does it automatically, aiming to have it turn on at sunset and turn off at sunrise. Next, in terms of the angle of view of the dash cams or how wide the video footage is, it's actually going to be a little bit narrower here on the U1000 Plus. The original one had an angle of view of 150 degrees up front, while the newer model is going to be down to just 135. And so you do get a little tighter field of view. Additionally, with the newer model, there's no longer an option for a circular polarizer to be installed on the front camera to help cut out reflections off of your windshield and whatnot. And that's due to the fact that the lens on the front camera is now slightly curved and bulges out a little bit, which prevents us from being able to stick the polarizer onto the front lens the way we could do with the original U1000. Now moving on to the rear camera, this is actually going to be more of a step down than with the front camera. And the reason I say this is we're going to be dropping down from a 2K or 1440p image sensor down to just a 1080p image sensor. Additionally, we no longer have a Sony Starvis sensor in the rear either. It used to be the classic IMX335, but now they're using a Silicon Optronics F352. And while the angle of view here with this newer camera is very similar, going from 156 to 160, so technically slightly wider, the lower resolution means that it is going to do a worse job of capturing details back behind, so identifying marks on a vehicle or license plates or faces or anything like that. Additionally, with the new sensor, I definitely noticed that this U1000 Plus looks more like a potato cam out the rear. And really everything I find looks worse here, including the video quality, the colors, and of course the actual detail capture. And this is also true with nighttime video as well. I actually prefer the added clarity and detail from the older rear camera because it used a high resolution 2K sensor, and notably it had a Sony Starvis image sensor. Now that said, the newer model does add HDR, but I find HDR to be less necessary on the rear cameras than the front. The main benefit I find in the rear though is if you've got cars back behind you with bright headlights, which can maybe overpower and blind the dash cam back behind you, HDR can actually make it easier to identify the individual vehicles back behind you. Now conveniently, just like with the front camera, the dash cam will actually display the text HDR at the bottom of the dashcam footage when it's turned on, which makes it easy to tell later on if HDR is turned on or not. And this I found really helpful because with the rear camera, if you take a look at the daytime footage, it actually looks like HDR is turned on even when it's not. And I say this because you can notice kind of this HDR-ish look to the image, especially with seeing extra detail in the sky with the clouds here, for example. And then lastly, it's also worth noting that you can't take the older 2K dashcam and plug it into the newer dashcam in case you're considering upgrading. Next, with the U1000 Plus, they've actually upgraded its Super Night Vision capabilities. And instead of Super Night Vision 2.0, we've now got Super Night Vision 3.0. And overall, it works better to help brighten things up in low light conditions. Now, the next new feature here with the U1000 Plus is going to be its dewarping capability. It's basically distortion correction. The idea here is with all these dash cams, they're typically recording a really wide field of view to capture everything going on as you're driving down the road. That said, one of the trade-offs here is it can make kind of this fisheye effect here in the video footage. And this effect is going to be most notable towards the edges and corners of the video footage where your straight lines will start to get curved. And with the new U1000 Plus, they've actually added some dewarping technology, which is going to help to straighten those straight lines back out. That said, I tried doing some comparison testing with both the older and the newer dash cams, driving in a city with, tall buildings, so I get some nice straight lines and whatnot. But I actually didn't notice that much of a difference compared to the original U1000 and the newer U1000 Plus. And so if there's any improvements here with this new feature, they seem to be pretty minimal. Next, the U1000 Plus adds Multiplexer support, which is going to allow you to add a bunch of additional camera angles here to the U1000 Plus. And so instead of maxing out at just a 2-channel dash cam recording front and rear, you now have the ability to add on the Multiplexer box and get up to 5 channels of recording. And Thinkware gives you the option to mix and match a variety of different add-on cameras. So instead of just being limited to the traditional rear-facing dash cam, you also have the option for an exterior waterproof rear camera or 2 different exterior side cameras, as well as an interior cabin camera. Now, all of these different cameras are going to plug into the Multiplexer box, which then plugs into the U1000 Plus. And in order to save on processing power and memory card space, instead of recording 5 different video files individually, it's going to be taking these other 4 cameras and then combining all of their video feeds into a single 1080p clip. And so once all is said and done, you're going to be getting the 4K video from the front camera and then this 1080p grid of video from all of the other cameras. Now, the next new feature to talk about is going to be Bluetooth, and this is going to make it much easier to get the dash cam connected to the phone to get your settings changed and whatnot. With the original U1000, you actually had to manually turn on Wi-Fi and then take your phone and connect to the dash cam's Wi-Fi hotspot. Here with the newer one, you can just connect directly to the dash cam using the app without having to first like manually connect to the Wi-Fi hotspot. And so if you want to adjust the different settings of the dash cam or just kind of check up on things and whatnot, you can just do that with Bluetooth. Now that said, if you want to switch over to anything that requires more data throughput, so like live streaming the video footage in real time while you're getting everything set up and getting, the lens angled and stuff during installation, or you want to view any of the footage that's actually been stored here on the memory card, anything like that, then yes, you can switch on over to Wi-Fi and do all the higher bandwidth stuff. So it's still available, but if that's not needed, you just want to check how many impacts were recorded in parking recording mode, or you just want to adjust some of the settings, you can just do that straight over Bluetooth, and it does make the connectivity much easier here with the newer model. The next change here with the U1000 Plus is some big improvements to the cloud capability with the new model as well. Now there's still no LTE built into the new dash cam or anything, and so you're still going to be dependent on some sort of external Wi-Fi hotspot, whether you're parking near your home or work for your cloud connectivity while parked, or maybe you have a Wi-Fi hotspot in the car to give you the cloud capabilities while you're driving. The big change here is the fact that it supports Thinkware's newer cloud system. Instead of Thinkware Cloud, it now supports the newer Thinkware Connected. And in a future video, I actually plan on doing a deeper dive between Thinkware Cloud and Thinkware Connected and really getting a better idea as far as how Thinkware's cloud functionality is improved and how it compares to other dashcam brands that also offer cloud capabilities. But in the meantime, here's the list of all the key features that you've got here with Thinkware Connected. Now, as far as some of my favorite features that I like in practice, number one, you've got the remote live streaming capabilities. So at any time, you can just pull out your phone and see exactly what the dash cam is seeing in real time. That said, it's not going to be as real time as something you'll get like with Blackview, for example. That's going to be live streaming in basically almost real time. With the original U1000, it was about a 20-second delay or so. With the newer one, I find closer to a 12-ish second delay, kind of a lag behind real time. So not exactly real time, but you can still live stream and see what's going on, both front and rear. Next, we've got these strong impact notifications. So in case of a crash, for example, the dashcam can actually connect out to the cloud and automatically upload that video footage to the cloud, so you have it available as a backup. Additionally, it can send a notification out to maybe your friends and family, your loved ones, your emergency contacts that you set up in the app that will let them know that, hey, you've been involved in a crash. It's going to be able to send your location, and it can send in the video clip so they can see exactly what happened as well. Now, I know in case of a crash, like you can of course text somebody and say like, hey, I was just in a crash, can you come help? But this is nice as like a more automated solution, a secondary solution, especially if maybe there's like a rollover and you're incapacitated or something. Or even if you can message them, they don't always get the video to be able to see what's going on, but you are going to be able to show them that directly here with the dashcam, which can be helpful. Additionally, you also have the ability to just press and hold the emergency recording button here on the back of the dashcam, and that can also manually send out the emergency notification to your emergency contacts. So if you get into a crash, maybe you can't reach your phone or your phone went flying or something, you again have a backup solution here which you can access directly from the dashcam too. Next, there's also going to be some impact notifications while you're parked as well. However, you may not actually want to use this feature. Number one, it can be trickier to get Wi-Fi in the car when you're parked. If you've got Wi-Fi built into the car, usually that turns off, right? When you turn off the car in order to save power. So you're going to be reliant on some sort of external Wi-Fi hotspot that stays on while your car is parked. Additionally, if you're using the Thinkware dashcam, one of the main reasons that I typically like to run Thinkwares is for their low power energy saving parking recording mode. And I'll go into this here in more detail here in just a minute. But if you're going to want to use the part capabilities, you want to avoid using any of their energy saving stuff and just stick to one of their traditional parking record options. So like your buffered motion detection and impact detection, for example. And in that case, then yes, you can still get your impact notifications while you're parked and you're not in the car either. Now, something that I like, especially if you are using one of the energy-saving parking recording modes, is when you park your car, it's actually going to take an image front and rear of where you parked and automatically upload that to the cloud, as well as share your location of the last place that you parked. So even if you're running the energy-saving parking recording mode, which is not going to be using the cloud features, or if you've been parked for a while and your battery is drained and the dash cam is shut off, well, you're still going to be able to see the last thing that the dash cam saw when you parked your car, which can be helpful in case maybe you forgot where you parked your car. You're going to be able to see it right on your phone, and you can see the location of where you parked as well. So you do still have some cloud capabilities, even if the dash cam is not turned on or not actively connected to the cloud. Next, let's take a look at the parking recording modes. Now, Thinkware has a couple different options for your parking recording. You've got your traditional, buffered motion detection and impact detection, which is kind of like the main one that I look for on most dash cams. It can record before an impact, during, and after, which is very nice. You also have the option for time-lapse recording if you'd like kind of like a sped-up time-lapse video with no audio. And then finally, you've also got its energy-saving parking mode, which is basically going to put the dash cam to sleep most of the time. And the G sensor is still going to be trying to detect an impact or something. And in case of an impact, it'll then wake up the dash cam and begin recording. Now, this does mean that the dash cam is not going to be able to record before the impact, but this will give you significantly longer parking record time. So instead of a day, you can get like a week or two, depending on the size of your battery. Now, that said, if you kind of want the best of both worlds with both the energy-saving, low-power, long-term parking recording, and you still want some of that buffered parking recording, which can record before an impact, you do still have that capability to some extent if you use Thinkware's optional radar module, which is going to be plugging into the front camera, and it's going to allow it to detect other vehicles up ahead of you and give the dash cam the ability to kind of like sense when cars are approaching, and it can actually wake up the dash cam before the impact if needed. Now, to demo this feature, I've got the two U1000s here, the regular one in just regular energy saving mode. This one's in radar energy saving mode, and it's actually going to start tracking this car here as it's getting closer. And if we go ahead and just kind of like simulate an impact, we'll hit the car like that. You're going to see the dash cams now wake up and begin recording. The Plus is going to save a 20-second clip, kind of 10 seconds before the impact and after, while this one is only going to save basically after the quote-unquote impact. And just like the original U1000, this radar module is really designed just to track other vehicles up ahead of you, not actually track other people. And to demo this, I tried walking in front of my car and whacking the windshield, and the U1000 Plus that had the radar module plugged in did not actually wake up the dash cam sooner than the original U1000 that did not have the radar module plugged in. And again, this radar functionality, it's identical here with both versions of the U1000. It's not changed in any way with the Plus, but it is actually a really helpful accessory that I like here with this dash cam. Now, something that is new here with the Plus is its new smart parking mode feature. It's basically designed to help the dash cam record when it gets really, really hot. So like parked in a hot car in the summertime, for example, things can really start to bake inside the car. If that happens, the dash cam can actually start to overheat. And so if you've got the dash cam set up in your traditional parking recording mode here, for example, like your buffered motion and impact detection, if the dash cam gets too hot, previously it would actually just shut off altogether and not record anything as a way to protect the dash cam so it doesn't overheat and get damaged. Now with the new model, it can actually switch from your traditional parking recording mode to the low power energy saving parking recording mode. So it's still going to be able to wake up in case it senses an impact or something. This does mean that you're going to be losing the buffered parking recording mode, so it's no longer going to be able to record before the impact. However, it's still going to be able to record something, which is definitely a big step up from the previous dashcam, which would actually just shut off altogether if it gets too hot. And then once the dashcam is able to resume normal parking recording mode, it can go ahead and do that. And so if you're in an area that gets really hot, especially in the summertime, this can actually be a really valuable feature here with this newer U1000 Plus. Now, speaking of parking recording mode, in order to give the dashcam power while you're parked, it comes with the traditional 3-wire parking recording cable that allows the dashcam to plug into the vehicle's fuse box and pull power from your car battery. Additionally, for easier installation, Thinkware also sells an optional OBD2 connector, which plugs into the car's OBD2 port and makes it a lot easier to get everything wired up and installed. Now, another option to give the dashcam power is to use a dedicated dashcam battery pack. This is actually my preferred solution here with the different dashcams. And Thinkware's flagship battery is going to be the iVolt Extra. This is the one that I typically run from the Thinkware dashcams, and it's got the largest capacity battery. It's a 7,500 milliamp hour battery. Now, that said, if you want to use Thinkware's energy-saving parking recording mode, that just sips a tiny amount of power. And so for that reason, if you want to save some money, you can actually pick up the Thinkware iVolt Mini instead. And even though it offers only 60% of the capacity as the iVolt Extra at just 4,500 milliamp hours, this is still going to be plenty if you want to record for multiple days at a time with the U1000 Plus, even if you're using the optional radar module. And I'll link to these different batteries for you down in the video description, just like I do for the dash cams, the optional OBD2 cable, the optional radar module, etc. Now, the next new feature available here in the U1000 Plus is the privacy recording feature, which can be helpful if maybe you don't want to record everything going on in the car while you're driving. Typically with dash cams, they just start recording as soon as you start driving, and they record everything until the memory card gets full, and then once the card gets full, it starts overwriting the oldest footage. In case of any sort of like emergency, like impacts detected, or you press the emergency recording button on the back of the dash cam, it can save and protect those clips. but otherwise it's going to start overriding the oldest footage while recording continuously the whole time. Now with this privacy recording option, it's basically going to give you the ability to not record everything always while you're driving, but instead only the past 1 to 4 minutes of video before maybe you press like the emergency record button or something. Or you can have it only record times when it detects an impact. So if like the G sensor detects maybe you've been in a crash or something, it can just save that particular clip. But otherwise, it's going to be throwing away most everything while you're driving around. And I'm not entirely sold on this feature for myself, but they put it in here for a reason, and I'm sure it's going to be useful for some people. Maybe for some Uber or Lyft drivers or something. Or I guess if you do a lot of like important phone calls in the car and you don't want it recording everything, then it could be useful for something like that. Next, we've got the ADAS capabilities, which are kind of like some safety features designed to warn you in case something is going on that you should be paying attention to. I honestly find this stuff really annoying, and it's always one of the first things I always turn off of any dash cam if it has these capabilities. Now, it's got things like lane departure warning, letting you know if maybe you're drifting onto an adjacent lane. And while that sounds good in theory, it also becomes really annoying when it's going off whenever you just want to change lanes in practice. And because it's not tied into like your car's turn signals and knowing that like, hey, I hit the turn signal, I'm intending to change lanes, it's just going to be beeping at you every time you want to change lanes, which is, again, really annoying. I wish that if you maybe plugged it into the OBD2 port, it could actually sense that maybe you've got the turn signal on and not beep. But I know there's definitely issues with that, which I've talked about in a previous video with tying into the vehicle's CAN bus, and that can sometimes actually cause issues for vehicles. And so for that reason, a lot of manufacturers don't actually want to do that with their aftermarket equipment. So long story short, it's going to be kind of nagging you at times when honestly you don't really need those warnings. It's also got features like front collision warnings, like if it thinks you're about to crash into the vehicle in front of you, or if maybe you're sitting at a red light and you're maybe paying attention to your phone and distracted, and then the car in front of you starts to drive away, it can actually give you a beep, a notification to be like, oh, hey, you should pay attention. The car in front of you is going away. And again, that sounds really useful, but because you can't actually configure that or adjust like the thresholds with how sensitive it is or how long it waits before it beeps, depending on how you drive, that may actually just wind up giving you some annoying beeps that you don't necessarily want because you can't adjust the sensitivity with how much time it gives you before that beep actually happens. But either way, in the meantime, I find this stuff pretty annoying. And again, it's just one of the things that I always turn off whenever I get a dash cam. And speaking of alerts, the dash cam can also notify you of things like red light cameras or speed cameras up ahead. And again, here, I find these alerts to be kind of annoying. It'll notify you both as you're farther away and approaching the red light camera.
Red light camera in 0.1 mile.
As well as you're getting close and about to pass the camera or the intersection. Now personally, I've already got this information available from my apps like Google Maps or Waze, and I also get it from my radar detectors as well. But if you typically don't use any navigation apps on your phone while you're driving, or you don't have a radar detector with GPS built in that gives you the red light camera and speed cam notifications, then I guess this could be another option that you can get here as well. Now, in order to update the database, because these cameras do come and go over time, you're basically just going to head on over to Thinkware's website. You can grab the latest GPS database off their website. You then just download that file, copy it over to the micro SD card, and then plug the card here into the dash cam, and it'll update itself next time you start up the car and start up the dash cam. And then finally, let's, I guess, take a quick look here as far as the U1000 Plus. And if you've got the original one, well, what all could you reuse? Well, some of the stuff you can actually reuse. So obviously you're going to have to replace the front camera and the rear camera with the newer model. The mount for the front camera you can reuse, and the power cable, you're going to be able to reuse that as well. If you're using the optional radar module, that's also compatible here with the newer version of the camera. But if you've got the 2-channel option installed with the rear camera, you are going to have to run a new cable back to the rear camera. And this is especially odd because the connectors in the cable actually look exactly the same because it still uses micro USB. Apparently there's a new transmit method that's involved here, and so for that reason you do have to run a new cable here. And so if you're going to be upgrading front and rear cameras, you're going to be changing, as well as the cable that connects the front and rear dash cam. It would be nice with the newer model to be able to reuse the older 2K camera. I know it doesn't offer HDR, but it does have higher resolution. So if you wanted the option to just buy the single channel one and then just plug in the existing older rear camera, that would be nice, but unfortunately that's not an option. You do have to use the newer 1080p rear camera, which I guess adds some multiplexer stuff and gives you the HDR as well. And then it's also worth noting that the newer model also supports larger memory cards. Previously, it only supported cards up to 256 gigs. Now you can support cards as large as 512 gigs. So if you want double the storage capacity here, you can also upgrade the memory card here with the Dashcam 2. And so lastly, with all that said, what are my thoughts here about this Dashcam? Well, I actually really like the fact that they've added a lot of new features here with this updated model. Things like HDR, for example, is definitely helpful with capturing details such as license plates at night. Adding Bluetooth makes it much easier to get your phone connected to the Dashcam to adjust different settings. And I'm glad that they've made a number of different improvements to their cloud features as well. I like that it now supports the Multiplexer box, so you have the option of upgrading from just 2 channels to up to 5 channels. And I like some of the smaller improvements, like the fact that it now supports larger memory cards up to 512 gigs. And the lower price point, that's pretty great too. Now that said, I do feel kind of bummed out because they've made the trade-off with going for lower quality image sensors for both the front and the rear. That's always one of the key core fundamental things for me when I look at a Dashcam. It's, the camera to record video. And if you make the video quality worse, that's kind of a bummer. Again, it's still going to be able to capture what's going on around you and stuff. It's not like it makes the Dashcam useless by any stretch of the imagination, but it is a bit disappointing that that's kind of where they've gone to save cost, where they've added a lot of features, they've lowered the price, but the trade-off is they now do have worse image sensors here with the newer Dashcam. Now, I don't know how much this is going to be an issue for most people. I mean, you can take a look at both Dashcams, and they're both 4K Dashcams, even though the 4K sensor is not as good here. And they've added a lot of new features like HDR, and so when it comes to like the list of marketing checkboxes and all the features, yeah, there are a lot more features that are available here in the Plus. But nevertheless, it's still kind of disappointing to see like the core image sensor part has taken a step backwards. Now, one change I would have loved to have seen is for them to integrate the radar module into the camera itself, like what they did with the U3000. I actually really like the fact that that one has radar built in the front and it has it built into the rear, because that's actually really useful in practice. Now, the U3000 does not have HDR, and it doesn't have some of the features that are available here in the U1000 Plus. And so for that reason, I would love to see an upgraded U3000 that also adds HDR and many of the newer features that are added here as well. But that would also be quite a bit more expensive than what we've got here with the U1000 Plus. And so with this one, we've got a more affordable camera. Radar is not built in, which is going to save costs. You can add it on if you want, but only on the front, not on the rear. It is going to be an external accessory, which is of course going to raise the cost. But if you don't want that and you just want traditional energy-saving parking recording, this Thinkware U1000 Plus is going to be more affordable than whatever a hypothetical Thinkware U3000 Plus might be. And so, yeah, this I guess is going to be a better bang for the buck in a sense for the Dashcam, but I typically prefer more of like the flagship options because I don't like to have the compromises. I like getting the best option that's possible. So I would prefer seeing some of the stuff maybe put into like a U3000 type Dashcam. But again, I appreciate them adding a lot of new features and lowering the price point with the U1000. I like the black trim. I just a little bummed out about the image sensor stuff. But anyways, if you'd like to pick one up, I'll put a link in the video description to where you can pick up the U1000, both the single channel front only version as well as the dual channel version. And I'll also link to some of the helpful accessories like that optional radar module for the front camera and the optional parking mode batteries if you'd like to add those accessories in as well. And so with that said, yeah, that's a look here as far as this Thinkware U1000 Plus. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you guys are all doing great, and I'll see you in the next one.